Sahana bhavatu, Sahanau bhunaktu, Saha viryam karavavahai, Tejasvinavaditam astu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. May that one nourish us both. May that one protect us both. May we work together with great energy and vigor, and may our study be illumined. May we not unnecessarily argue with each other. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. So welcome to our Tuesday evening talk. I think it's true to say that everybody that we know of, and everybody in the life, and everybody who has ever lived in the past and will ever live in the future, will face some kind of adversity. What is adversity? Well, it begins with the expectation that everything will run smoothly. The sun rises, it looks as if it's a smooth thing. But you see, the sun has its own difficulties if you were to personalize the sun. Most people think that the sun is a ball of plasma or a gas, but other people probably more accurately think that it has a solid surface, and that it is a latticed surface that is able then to deliver the thermal result that we see as glorious sunshine. But don't think from here it looks so glorious. In the morning it's beautiful. But as we know from our most wonderful latest scientific technology, it's a bubbling mass. It's like a furnace, a bubbling mass. There's nothing calm about it. Close up, it's a torrential storm, or series of storms going here and going there, bubbling up from inside through whatever mechanism is there, and fortunately radiating some of this energy away. And then there's a beautiful arrangement that we have on the earth, because the earth has an iron core that acts like a magnet to deflect harmful radiation waves or cosmic rays. And so the combination of the earth and the sun gives us really the ideal conditions for life. The whole thing is there on the outer area of the whole galactic system called Milky Way. And Goldilocks conditions is what it's called, because if we were too close, we wouldn't have these conditions. Too far away, we don't have it. We'd go out into the coldness. We might even be on an outer leg of the galaxy. Nothing will work with ideal conditions. But you see, everything is in motion. Everything is in a state of frustration. Everything is up and down. There's no smoothness, and yet our expectation is that the whole of the universal life and the whole of our life will be smooth. When you ask a child to draw a sun, it draws a circle, yellow in color, smiley face. And so our expectation, because of probably our lack of understanding, lack of knowledge, or maybe an overly optimistic attitude, says everything will be fine. But I don't want to put a damper on that, because everything will be fine, but it depends on a few things. So we have to accept that adversity is part and parcel of what we call life, and we should expect everything to go smoothly. If we're realistic, we know that there is a series of events called birth and called life and called death. We can take this as a kind of cycle, if we like, or we can take it as a kind of journey. But what happens in between the beginning and the end is of tremendous value, because what happens in that gap really depends on our fulfillment and how we have the opportunity to face the adversity. In how to face adversity, the first thing, therefore, is to accept we are living under potentially adverse conditions, and we have to find some formula to get around it. If we don't find some formula, we'll be faced with giving up, or faced with depression, or we will be faced with talking ourselves into a false position, not seeing that although there's adversity, there is also goodness. There are the pairs of opposites, and we probably find them in equal measure. Just as when you go uphill on a bicycle, it's okay because you know there's a downhill. Of course, there's another uphill probably after that. Now, if you have a certain attitude of mind, you'll take it, and in fact, you'll invite it. You'll invite the adversity. Just take one of the greatest physical adversities we can think of, Mount Everest. Hundreds and hundreds, maybe even thousands of people make the attempt. It was a big, big thing in the 1950s when Edmund Hillary climbed Mount Everest along with a Sherpa. And we always forget the name of the Sherpa. Somebody will tell me what who his name was. Huh?
Tenzing, I think.
Yes, Tenzing. Yes, yes, you're quite right, because they made a big fuss about Edmund Hillary, but unfortunately, not so much about his companion. But many people have died. People have thought with a sense of confidence, well, there's a mountain, having done it. Many people can do it, and we hear that there's an expedition, but you see, you won't do it without some kind of precondition, some kind of training. To deal with adversity is the same thing. Knowing that the whole of life is pot-marked with adverse conditions, we have to proper that works. Not simply accept there'll be ups and downs. Knowing and understanding that we have the capacity to transform things. We're a walking, living, multi-purpose transformer. If we're able to know that, then that's half of the formula. So how to trade ourselves? Well, it's a question of either feeling overwhelmed by circumstances and an internal conversation that enforces the impact that they have, or asserting we have the capacity to overcome every difficulty because we're fully equipped. And why is that? The formula is spiritual. We cannot have this formula unless it's to do with the spiritual law. And the spiritual law says that, firstly, there will be adversaries. And secondly, we have the capacity to overcome them. And thirdly, we have all the resources necessary for it, inside us and outside us, if we take this idea of inside and outside to begin with. Because all the adversity is coming from outside and impacting us. And even if it's adversely affecting the human body, it's still an outside. What we call the body, what we call the mind, these are external to a fundamental quintessential self. And religion calls this self God. So this is not the God of an extra cosmic creation. It's not the God outside and beyond things. It's not the creator God. The creator God who, from ex nihilo, manufactures something. It is the creator God that manufactures everything from itself. We can put another gender if you like, himself, herself. It manufactures all this from itself. That means that every morsel of our experience and every morsel of our resources and every morsel of our observations, if you look at it in a proper way, you'll identify nothing more than divine grace flowing. So earlier in the meditation, we meditated on the nature and qualities of the fluid that we call water. Water is life. And in the same way, if we are able to observe properly, if we're able to catch it, we will see that grace never ceases to flow. Right now, I'm talking. The capacity to talk relies on the capacity to think. The capacity of think requires a flow, like a current of thought. I don't have to ask for it. I don't have to beg for it. It's there. When I wake up, it's there. When I sleep, it's there in a different form. And when I dream, it's there in a different form still. And even when the physical body seems lifeless and I've extracted my identity from it, I've taken the insertion, which we call otherwise philosophically called a waking state of consciousness. When I close my eyes, then another world opens up for me, a manifestation of divine grace appearing in different forms with different adventures and identities. And then even when that goes off, the grace is still there, standing still as peace. The whole thing is divine grace, divinely organized, if we have a will to think of it, for our benefit. And in order for us to express in a delightful way this. Now, even the words that we use are sufficient to overcome adversity. And when we use them now, and we will continuously use them, and we use them over and over again, repeating them, then the repository of our thoughts and actions that we call the unconscious mind starts changing and remolding. And the unconscious mind has a pulling power in it. It has a suction in it. And it is that suction that draws people, places, events, scenes, objects toward us. We are the manufacturers of it. And behind it is one cosmic mind. And this cosmic mind is our source and our supply, so that when we pray, we should have no doubt. We should have no need to repeat it. I often remember, and I've told the story often, and I've heard it in other people say the same story, but I can assure you this is my own experience. I know in Africa, some years ago, there was a drought, and we had a workshop. As you know, the standard Enneagram workshop that we have spans over 2 weeks and 2 weekends. And the first weekend, that's fine, 2 week gap. Second weekend, I asked this person, how was as I asked everybody, so how was your time away and so forth. And it happened to be in a period of a drought. And people were desperate. And this person said, well, I went down to Johannesburg. This is from Harare. I went down to Johannesburg, some 1,000 or so kilometers away. And they were, a big stadium. So desperate were we for rain that we had a prayer meeting. Something like amazing, 80,000 people were there in the big stadium. And I said, nothing wrong with that. That's wonderful, fantastic, well done. No. I was hugely disappointed, disgusted actually. I was appalled. Why is that? She said, do you know, not one person brought an umbrella. Praying for rain in that stadium, not one person brought an umbrella. So you see how thought forms. Thought forms as an accomplished fact, an attitude that, since this cosmic mind behind everything gets mobilized, this creative mind gets mobilized and takes on all the graces around us, fivefold traditionally. We call these tanmatras, all these creative elements that compound and mix and ultimately manifest as the space around us and the objects that fill it, and the eyes that see it also, and the ears that hear it, and the hands that touch it, and the mouth that tastes it. All of this is arranged because when we insert a thought, that thought infallibly reaches its destination and crystallizes as a you and a me and a this and a that. If we have absolute confidence and faith in this principle, then we can use it confidently. We can put our order in the form of affirmations, mantras, assertions, with a confident feeling, knowing that the source of supply is infinite and will provide us with infinite resources. Confident that we only have to do it once or twice. We don't have to repeat it. We don't have to continuously doubt it. Repeating it means doubting it. It will happen. When will it happen? Already happened. Already happened. And Jesus had the formula. And I think it's in Mark's Gospel, I'm not sure, but There's an episode. Jesus and his disciples are walking along, and in an unseasonable time period, they see a fig tree devoid of fruit. And Jesus curses it. The following day, they see the whole thing withered. And they marveled at his power. Now, apart from the fact that why would Jesus do such a thing? Leave that aside. It's not ours to ask. But the important thing is this. He says, greater than this, greater things than this can you accomplish. If you said to that mountain, move, it'll move. And then he gives the formula. Believe that it is already accomplished. Put in the past tense. Already accomplished, finished. And leave it there. It'll be delivered, just like delivering something on the internet. You order it. You don't wait. Is it coming? Is it coming? Look around the corner. Look out of the window. Disappointment. I put the order in. It must be lost. No, you put the order in. And provided you know that this is a reliable company and so on, and you're quite sure that behind this company name, there is a big warehouse and people are already arranging, they're getting their goods, they're putting in the packaging department, the mailing department, and sending it off as required. And then one day it arrives. It might be a day later, 2 days later, 1 week later, whatever it is, but it will arrive. We don't doubt it. And doubt and fear are the two companions that will block it completely, and they are derived from a misunderstanding of this principle, that we become subject, ultimately, to destiny. We give up. And we start complaining because everything is an endorsement of a negative condition, simply because we cannot see a way out. And why is that? Because we're thinking in a limited way. We are conditioned to. It is a natural thing. We're conditioned to think that there is a restriction, and as we grow in our education, we become less and less imaginative and creative, because imagination, image making, is what is required. Now, there's a passage in the Bhagavad Gita, and it gives us that there are 4 types of virtuous people. We have to look at chapter 7 for that, if you have a Bhagavad Gita. And there's a very interesting verse. You see, 16. Having said that, people who are deluded, who are ignorant, who are weak, they are deprived of discrimination by what? By Maya. We have to describe what we mean by that. And following the way of the Asuras, they don't worship me. What does it mean? It means the normal condition that we call humanity. Seeing the world as it is, with its limitations, without its infinite possibilities behind it. What do? We are deluded, and so therefore our behavior changes. Now the Katha Upanishad gives us an option. You can take the preferable or the pleasurable. It's up to you. You make your decision. And what we call discernment, or the capacity to sort out what is useful and what is not. We get caught up in the web of Maya. So before we opened the room to everybody, that was one of the comments, the greeting comments. How are you? Yes, fine. That we're in Maya. And Maya is not a bad thing. Maya is a good thing. Yes, there's a capacity to hide things, delude you, and project something else onto things. Yes. But it has a revealing capacity too, and we should take it. So everything in life has this combination. It has a good side, it has a bad side. When we know nature and how it works, we can use the non-adversarial type. For example, if we want to get water from a well, then we'll lower a bucket into the well. It's easy. Gravity does the work for us. When we put it up, then it's harder work. We have to struggle. In the old days, in the mining, when people wanted to get ore out from the bottom, it was easy to lower the bucket. It's not a problem. But then you load it with heavy rock. And to draw it up, you'd have to use horsepower. Or sometimes donkey power or mule power, but ultimately horsepower. And then ultimately steam machines were discovered. And you could then rotate a rope and bring it up through the power of steam. And then electricity came. So there were motors that could do that, electric motors that had the capacity to turn on and wind the rope backwards and release the rope down. Releasing the rope down did not require anything other than brakes so that you can control the movement downwards. But pulling it up required energy. You see, as long as we know the laws and behaviors of nature, we can use nature. We can use it to our advantage. And that's exactly what has happened in modern technology. There's a discovery whereby we can harness nature, just as we harnessed animals, elephants, horses, and so on, to do the work for us. And in some cases, buffaloes, and in some cases, oxen. When people set off on a big trek in South Africa from the very Cape across rugged, huge mountains, dangerous, unknown scenery, they had ox wagons and they were pulled by oxen. So we have the mastery because we have the confidence in our own ability, our own capacity to master something. It is called psychosocial evolution, the development of an ego which says, I can do it. I can overcome an animal that is much bigger than me and use its horsepower. And I can harness electricity and magnetism and use that horsepower. And I can then send a rocket off to the moon and send people in there. And I can send a robot off to Mars. And I can explore through a Voyager, what is called a Voyager, off to the ultimate final end of our solar system. I can explore so many things. A James Webb telescope I can send out into the darkness of space and get an insight looking backwards in time. Now, the principle of looking backwards in time tells us one thing. It looks to us as if time is a rolling motion, like a train. But actually, when you really analyze it, it's not like that. When you see me, you're seeing me in the past. Fraction of a second ago, it takes 8.5 minutes for the sunlight to reach us from the sun. We are seeing everything in the past. Everything is happening in the past. And if you say, I will do this in 2024, well, 2024, is it the future? It will sometime be the present. So all you're saying is that I'm saying it from the past, from the point of view of 2024. And from the point of view of 2023, then I'm seeing it in the future. But that future will be the present. I want to plan tomorrow. Well, tomorrow will become the present. So it is only our facility to handle things within a framework of time. It's a psychological deception, but it's useful to us. Things are not what they seem to be. This is called Maya. And so Maya can be overcome by discrimination, understanding. How do we define reality? Something that doesn't move, something that is the same yesterday as it was today, as it will be in thousands of years from now. Something that doesn't appear and disappear. No change in it, something that is permanent. This is how we would really define reality. I know we say this is reality, but when you look at it carefully, using your discrimination, then things will look different. None of us, there are no permanent habitats anywhere. None of us will live for 100,000 years. There will be some people who may live to 100, God bless them. They may live to 120 with modern technology, artificial limbs perhaps, but with only their personality intact. But they will not live forever because even machines perish and get rusted and have to be maintained. There is no such thing as perennial life. There is a cyclical version of it where life gets transformed from one thing to another. Yes, no doubt. So with all these vicissitudes that are caused by this deception and following the way of the ashras, the way of those who are misled, so what do? Well, we should do the opposite, which we should worship. That means we should see the glory in everything. We should see the divine glory everywhere. We should feel it within us. We should feel it through us. We should feel it around us. We should feel it as us. But there are four kinds of people who deal with adversity, adversarial conditions, adversity. So what are they? Chaturvita bhajanti mam jana suktino jani arjuna arto jidnyasur artarti jnani cha parata rishabha. Rishabha, four kinds of virtuous people. Chatur vida. They worship me, bhajante mam. These are those who are in distress, the seeker of knowledge, the seeker of wealth, and the wise. Let's just examine these. What do we mean by the wise? The next verse defines it. The wise, ever steadfast and devoted to the one, that is, the ultimate source, which we can call the immortal self in our Vedanta philosophy. Otherwise, theology calls it God. Excels in all of this, in other words, gets the better result. For supremely dear am I to the wise, and he is dear to me because they understand the principles of it. So which are the other ones? Well, it's good because they're all virtuous, but there are levels and gradations. And so the lowest type, of course, will be those who are looking for a result because they are so distressed, they are desperate. Nothing else can help them. They've looked here and there. No earthly thing can seem to assist them. And so they'll be in a dip, they'll be in a negativity, and they will want a positivity. They'll want some relief from this. But there's a key which they may not know about. You see, if they're virtuous, then they'll have no doubt. They will have faith. Even though their motive may be, you can get me out of it. Why else would they be praying? You can get me out of this. So I have faith that you'll do it. There may be some ritualistic formula that goes with it. Sometimes when people are in trouble, I give them a little ritual. Make some semolina porridge, some halwa, something like that. Make it with these ingredients. Offer it to Lord Ganesha, who removes all obstacles. Do it for something like 4 weeks. Do it every day at this time of day. Well, within a small period of time, something will shift for them. It's nothing that I did. It's that their thought mobilized it. That's the secret. Don't tell them. Well, you should tell them, of course. Everybody should have access to this potency. And they do. They just have to know it. And so the distressed, that's the first type. And then the second type is those who want knowledge. That is, I want to know more. I know a little, I want to know more. I'm fine at the moment, but I want a little more, either knowledge or other things. I'm not exactly desperate, but a little bit more is better. And then the other type, of course, will be the seeker of wealth. It would be much better. I'm okay. Nothing is wrong, but a little bit more money would help. A lot more money would help. And all of these are because the source is the supplier of abundance and the remover of all our problems and obstacles. Who else would we appeal to? But the seeker of the wise, of course, will be the best. All of them are virtuous, no doubt. But the wise will already know that the source and supply are there, the same thing, that every problem presented will have a matching solution because it is all just a flow of divine grace and nothing else. But they're all noble. So, udaraha sarva evai te jnani dvatmai vame matam. Astitaha sahi yuktatma mam eva mutamam gatim. All of these are noble, but the wise people I regard as my very self, because they themselves are aware of it. Steadfast in mind, not upset by any adversity, in other words. Steadfast in mind, established in me alone as the supreme goal. And at the end of many births, the person of wisdom takes refuge in me, realizing that the one who pervades everywhere, called Vasudeva, is all that is. There's nothing else there. But such a great soul is rare, and therefore we may say it has to be cultivated. How will we cultivate such a condition? Now there's one Upanishad here, Katha Upanishad, that gives us some clues. So it tells us that a beautiful, beautiful passage. This is first section of Katha Upanishad, second subsection, and the 14th verse. And it tells us like this. Ayantra dharmad anyatra dharmad anyatrasmat krita kritat anyatra bhutacha bhavyach cha yat tat pasyasi tad vada. Anyatra dharmad dharmad anyatrasmat krita kritat anyatra bhutat cha bhavyat cha yat tat pasyasi tad vada. That's the passage. Repeated. What is it? You recall that in the Katha Upanishad, Katha means a story, there's a dialogue between Nachiketa and the teacher of all things that come and go, namely death, Yama and self, because death provides us with the grandest obstacle and fear of all, how to deal with it. And we deal with it every day, more or less, because every disappointment is a kind of bereavement, even a small one. The same process being gone through. And so death is the final disappointment. It can be described like this. So there's a dialogue, and Nachiketa, he says, that which you see as other than dharma, that which is not dharma, that which is adharma, that which is not righteousness, is there something that is like that is other than a cause and effect? And other than the past and the future, please tell me that. Now we've discussed the past and the future. Is there something that is not restricted to time? Is there something that is not restricted to the law of causality? The reality applies everywhere. And when we talk of adversity, we really are saying it's not a random thing. Some cause is there. 3 types of causes will be there. One type will be caused by our own wrong thinking. Either in this life or past life, whatever it is, it's the same thing. It's all a continuum from our point of view. It's just the mechanism changes, that's all. So it's either caused by us. It is our own karma, our own causality, and we're reaping our own effect, and the law is called sowing and reaping. Or it is also, in a positive way, when we use it, it is called giving and receiving. Secondly, that which is caused by others. We can be innocently walking around and somebody else will affect us because we are not the only thinking people in this universe. There will be others also. When we rehearse and shore up our own confidence levels, our own internal potency, then we should have no fear of that at all. And the third will be what insurance companies might call act of God. It just happens because nature isn't smooth. You can't say what was the cause, as many religious people might. What is the cause of an international disaster, something like an earthquake or something like a volcanic eruption, where hundreds and maybe thousands of people die, you can't say, we'll blame it on an unsuspecting God, and you can't say, well, it's their sin either. No, the fact of the matter is, nature has its laws, and in order to adjust smoothness, in order to make a kind of balance, there has to be pairs of opposites. There has to be good, there has to be evil, there has to be righteousness, unrighteousness, there has to be adharma and adharma. Both have to be there. Now, we value things in terms of these opposites, but it's only our interpretation. We generally know what is good and we generally know what is not. But some of the evaluation must be entirely subjective. Subjective is it a good thing to eat meat? Well, some cultures say yes and some cultures say no. These are subjectively fluctuating values, and that's up to you. But there are established moral values which are there, but they are because we know that the opposite is also there, vice is also there. We can't appreciate the sunshine unless there's the nightfall. We can't appreciate the light unless there's the shade. We can't appreciate the electron unless there's a positron. We can't, the whole thing is to do with a yin-yang situation. The yin-yang symbol is so simple and yet so profound that there's an intermingling of these two forces, these positive and negative forces that combined make a flow. So is there something different from this causality? Is there something different from virtue and vice? Virtue and vice is our own valuation of it. You can't impose it on a crocodile. You can't say, please behave. You're engaging in immoral behavior, biting people's legs off. A crocodile won't understand it. It'll look at you, probably, maybe, and if you have ever been looked at by a crocodile, you might be its lunch. So, crocodile's nature is deriving its food by biting, and it's instinctive enough. Some instinct has been built into it over millions and millions of years. It's one of the most successful, if not the most successful creature on the planet. Anyway, is there something different from that is the question. And it's the same as saying, how do we face adversity? Do we crash into it? Do we run away from it? What is our formula? Do we panic? Do we become fearful? Do we become doubtful? Or do we shore up our confidence with philosophical facts, realities? That actually it's not just that this world is perishable, but behind it is the imperishable. That we have to be certain of. And the manifestation of that is what we call this world. And it is plastic, it is flexible. And the way in which to shape it is through our thinking. So we can do it. And the thinking, as I have said maybe the other day, is reliant on words. It's reliant on a conversation that we have with ourselves. A monologue that we normally have, we should introduce another part in it. A debate, a kind of internal debate that provides us with this discrimination. Yes, it is like this. Yes, what should we do about it? Well, perhaps we do this, perhaps we do that. Shuffle around a number of ideas. All of a sudden, something comes. This we call inspiration. Where's inspiration coming from? It's coming from the cosmic mind. It's coming from the superconscious area of the mind. It's coming from divine inspiration. Take it. Take it as a free gift and use it. So, what is other than this causal law and other than the past, the future? And please tell me. And what does the Lord reply? The Lord replies, Sarve vida yat padam amananti tapamsi sarvani chayad varanti yad icchantu brahmacharyam charanti tat te padam samgrahena bhavini om itya etat. You recognize the sound of om comes into it. The reply is like this. That word which all the Vedas declare, which all the austerities proclaim, desiring which people live the life of a religious student even, such as yourselves, that word to thee, I shall tell it in brief, that is Om. Now this is very profound. In other words, all sounds, all internal language is all derived from this Om. That word which all the Vedas declare, because the revelation of truth is like that, which all the austerities proclaim, everything is geared toward this one thing, and the mystic word for it is Om. So, some commentators, such as Ashvalyana, says that a student is required to be chaste or obedient. In other words, we have to have purity of mind sufficient for attention to light on what is true. What do we mean by what is true? We mean the underlying quintessential being that manifests in a planned way, manifests as in a designed way, in a regular way, in a natural way, a combined and recombining way, which we can mobilize from this one word. If this word is the source, then we should take it. So, what will he tell us about this? This word, he says, is indeed the supreme principle of Brahman. This word is indeed supreme. And he who realizes the word indeed obtains whatever he wishes. Whatever you wish, Icha, whatever you wish, whatever your will is, you mobilize through this cosmic mind called Om. This is the best support. This is the highest support. And the person who knows this support is worshipped in the world of Brahman. And that principle is not subject to change. And because it's not subject to change, because it's changeless, it's effective. So, what is it? Ajo Nityaha and so on. It is never born, it never dies, it doesn't spring from anything, nothing springs from it, it's never born, it's eternal, it's everlasting, it's ancient, it's never slain, even when the body is slain. And this is a meditation passage. Sitting and meditating on these words boosts your internal essence, asserts it, and whatever thought comes from this will be mobilized. You can be absolutely sure of it. And if in this state you are thinking and a thought wanders in and says, I wish my neighbor's nose would fall off, well, you see, it may not happen because it requires this purity where individual and divine will are aligned so that there's only a oneness. And cosmic mind is a knower. So if the slayer thinks I slay, you can see the parallel passages in the Bhagavad Gita, this close connection between the Bhagavad Gita and the Katha Upanishad. If he thinks I slay, if the slain think I'm slain, then both of them don't know it well. It neither slays nor is slain. If you think that you're going to attack the world and crash into it, it's not going to work because it's on the basis of something that is slaughtered, something that is attacked. No, if you understand that that entity that has no boundaries in front or on the sides, if you really understand that, then every thought movement will come to its virtuous conclusion. You'll get anything that you want. And smaller than the smallest, greater than the greatest, the self is seated deep within each living being. Not just humans, even an ant. Even those, you see, even those living beings, We were talking earlier about artificial intelligence. It's not a living being, it's the product of a living being. So he who beholds the majesty, the beautiful glory of the self, becomes free from what? Well, free from desire because it's completely fulfilled, already accomplished, nothing more to get. And without sorrow, because adversity, if it's there, if we have to face it, it produces sorrow if we don't handle it correctly. But it frees you from sorrow with all the internal elements rendered calm. You'll face adversity in a calm way. You'll face even a bull charging toward you. We have a record of that. Swami Vivekananda, Swami Brahmananda, both of them, similar occasions. They stood, protected other people behind them, stood there, and the bull backed down. I've used it myself, I have to tell you, in adverse, so-called what most people interpret as adverse conditions. And you raise yourself to the full height with the knowledge and the immortal self, and in front of me is that also. And with that, and a little bit of a dramatic, fierce look, the person who wants to attack you just goes away, disintegrates. With an apology, sorry. I don't know if they said sorry in my case, but I hoped they did. I didn't hang around for the apology. So, sitting he goes far. Even the James Webb telescope that is looking out to what seems to be something like, in the cosmic current model, something like, say, 500 million years away from the Big Bang, something like that, where it shouldn't be. Galaxies are there, fully formed and forming. So even looking as far away as that, that's a tremendous, tremendous feature. And even there, even if the galaxy wasn't formed, that is there, sitting there, before that is formed and within the formation of all of that. Wherever you go, you can go to the infinite lengths, or infinite, about 93 billion light years is said to be the area, if you will, of the entire universe. But now it's seen to be at least twice that. It seems just to go on infinitely. However far you look, it's still there, because this being is always there, no matter how far you look at it. And it's subtle, no matter how small you go, it's there. And so sitting he goes far, lying he goes everywhere. Who else other than myself is worthy of knowing the Lord who rejoices and rejoices not? Knowing the self as the bodiless one within bodies, the firm and steady element within instability, the great and all-pervading one, the wise never grieve. And in the midst of the battle of the Mahabharata, in the midst of the battle where we find the context of the Bhagavad Gita, the wise don't grieve, either for the living or the dead, Krishna tells Arjuna. This seems completely heartless and inhumane until you realize the depth and importance of this passage. Because how will you grieve for something that is full? How you can grieve for something that is immortal? It is to condition the mind to the sense of full potential in immortality, and all grief goes away. Now, how do we attain this? Well, I can tell you how you can't do it. So, yam evesha prunuti tena labhyas is part of it. Na yam atma pravachane na labhyo na medhaya na bahuna shrutina. Shrutina, by study, no. The self cannot be attained through sermons or talks or lectures like this, nor by intelligence, nor by listening a lot to the Vedas or the scriptures or books. No, it's not for an intellectual. But the person who the self chooses, this is a very controversial passage, by him the self can be gained, to him the self reveals its subtle nature. What does it mean? Only by this divine grace will you get this revealed. But what does that mean? Well, what it means is that if you move 1 inch toward this divine moves 1,000 miles toward you, or kilometers. This is a passage from a book I've recently been reading to you, The Game of Life and How to Play It, the passage on intuition or guidance. He says, it is the utmost importance to choose the right words in guiding your thought. Some of it is my commentary. And so the student carefully selects the affirmation that they wish to catapult into the invisible. That means select your words carefully and direct them confidently. That person knows that God is their supply, that there is a supply for every demand, and that the spoken word releases the supply. This is a remarkable statement. And it's an echo of the passage we have just read. Ask and you shall receive, in the words of Jesus. Man must make the first move, however. And there's the famous story that I told, now quite familiar to you, in a poem the other day, about the person whose whole life disintegrated. They had problems after problems after problems, until eventually their whole business that had been carefully built up was crumbled into nothing. And fortunately, they had believed in God, and desperation prayed, the only thing that can save my financial situation is I have to win the lottery. I have to win the lottery. Now, after a long time, and conditions deteriorated dramatically, he turned to atheism. His belief got turned off. And in desperation, a cry of desperation, shouted, I no longer believe you. I asked you for one simple thing in your cosmic scheme of things, and you did nothing. And the clouds rolled away, and a voice boomed, my dear child, at least buy a lottery ticket. So unless we take some kind of move, we have to initiate a move, there's no doubt. We have to do what is necessary. This is not fatalism, in other words. So we have to make the first move, draw nigh to God, and he will draw nigh to you, was the passage quoted. And the person says, I've often been asked just how to make a demonstration, and I reply, speak the word and then do not do anything until you get a definite lead. Demand the lead, saying, Infinite Spirit, reveal to me the way. Let me know if there's anything for me to do. So there are many examples given from this book in terms of this. The culmination of such a thing is this, that when we, and it's echoed, by the way, of course, in the words of Sri Ramakrishna, the wind of divine grace is ever blowing. We have but to set our sail. So we have to have an opening somewhere. And this opening is with tremendous, tremendous confidence and faith. You are my supply. I just need to mobilize the words and the thought and your cosmic mind, your very essence. In mythology, we call it Brahma. The cosmic mind will then mobilize all the necessary forces and mobilize the cosmic storehouse, the cosmic supply, and deliver it at your doorstep. We have to learn the art of tapping into this infinite storehouse of abundance in every context. Abundance is not against us. There are some religions who will romanticize poverty, not understanding that even wealth, if properly handled and properly used, is part of divine grace that is given. So these are some passages relevant to the subject, and I finish off just with one kind of summary. And it's a repetition of some things I've said already. If some adversarial situation comes up toward us, the first thing we do is value it in its correct context. It's not against you personally. It's not God putting an unfortunate deposit of concrete on your head. It's not stabbing you and pinching you, making your life difficult. It's not even there so you can learn a lesson. None of these. It's just the nature of nature itself. And that nature is the divine manifested nature, which is designed to have pairs of opposites in order to make the machine work. And we will come across them. But how to face them? And I often quote, and I just remind you, if you have a game or a sport, let us say it's a rough game, a tough game. Let's put the game of rugby. I can't think of many sports which are rougher. Supposing you say to these rugby people, okay, you can start your game, and the person says, okay, I'm not feeling so well today. Do you think you could do some things for me? And the referee says, what do you want? You see this opposition team who are doing the haka and looking at me with the fierce warrior-like looks as if to tear me apart. Could you just send them off the field? I think I'd play much better. And then you see, I don't know if my teammates are confident, are competent. I'll take the ball myself. And I might be distracted by the crowds. Please remove these. And I might not be able to kick accurately. If you have a flexible set of goalposts that can move, so that when I kick the ball, it'll guaranteed to go across, then that's good, that's fine. Well, the player itself who's requesting this will not enjoy the game. And a tougher game you cannot have, except rugby. People go in there. I'm told they're sane people, and they go in there and they get their noses broken, and so on and so forth, and they really enjoy it. So that's it. But life is not half as tough as that. So it's a game, it's a sport. That means with a sporting attitude, we have to engage. And so how do we face adversities? We don't crash into them. We deal with them tactfully from the side and get inspiration of how we can work around them and play the game with great joy and confidence, knowing there is only oneness of existence present. Thanks. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace be unto all. Thank you.
Thank you, Swamiji.
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 Thank you, Swamiji.